Hey everybody, welcome back. 2014 Turnpike to Turnpike Fantasy Football. This is the Week 5 preview show. And just like that, an entire third of our fantasy football season is over. And after 4 games, we have one team still perfect. We have one team that we thought had a loss 2 weeks ago, turns out had a tie, nipping at the heels of the undefeated team. And a whole bunch of mediocrity in the middle. And then a couple bottom feeders. But that is Turnpike to Turnpike. As I say, every year, it's a very tough league to win. And my hat's off to the guys up on the top of the leaderboard. Let's check out last week's action. First up, we had Bob Crane's Julius Jones taking on Greg Long's Mount Laurel Lancers. And Bob wins this one. Now, Bob, let's not get too cocky here, okay? Your Calvin Johnson pick, all your high picks didn't come through here. Your high scores you fell into during the draft. You had no plans on targeting these guys. Let's be real. Bob got 42 points out of Steve Smith, 34 points out of Aaron Rodgers, and 9 points out of Chris Ivory. All right, maybe you wanted Aaron Rodgers, but anybody could have decided to reach high on a quarterback and take him there. But come on, the rest of your team, give me a break. And by the way, you won despite not starting your brand new toy, your tight end from the Giants. Greg got 37 points out of Joe Flacco. Greg, that was an awesome pickup and insert after you didn't have Manning because you were crippled by him by the bye week last week. Flacco, when I saw you picked him up and inserted him, I was like, wow, that was a really questionable call. Greg got 37 points out of him, 15 points out of Victor Cruz, and 10 points out of Smoke 'em if you got him, Le'Veon Bell. So with that, Bobby moves up to 3-1 and 1, or 2-1 and 1. I'm sorry, 2-1 and 1. This is after he had a correction, a stat correction from ESPN last week that gave him a tie after we were all celebrating his demise from this league. I guess it was short-lived. Get it? Short because you're small, Bob. You're little and annoying. Up next, we've got Aaron or Snoozy Loafs taking on Matt Dreyfus's Fishtown off in the corner. And Matt wins this one 103-79. Matt got 36 points at Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is just putting up ridiculous numbers right now for you, Matt. You have to be super pleased with him. He's on pace to be the #1 fantasy quarterback this year. He threw for another 300-yard game, another 3 to 4 touchdowns weekly. You can't be upset about having him. 35 points out of Eddie Royal and 8 points out of Julio Jones, where Aaron received 18 points out of Martellus Bennett, 11 points out of Eddie Lacy, and 11 points out of Doug Martin. And the next match, really what was a beatdown of historic proportions, I'll get to that more after this. We have Jeff Szymanski's Paper Tiger taking on Mike Bond's Eastfall Blunts and beating him 173-66. I'll say that again. 173-66. Jeff got 37 points from Philip Rivers, 30 points from Antonio Brown, and 28 points from Randall Cobb, where Mike Bond received 16 points from his San Diego Chargers defense, 13 points from Roddy White, and 11 points from Adam Vinatieri. Now, let me tell you something about this score, okay? With that, Jeff totaled the 5th highest point total in Turnpike to Turnpike history. Listen to these totals that are the only ones that surpassed him. Kenny Long was the highest scorer in a given week back in 2008 when he totaled 189 points. Jeff Goldenbaum in 2010 totaled 180 points. Again in 2008, Kenny Long 177 points, and Jeff tied Brian Sheehan this past week with 173 points. Bob Crane had 175 in 2011. Szymanski, 2014, ties Brian Sheehan from 2013 with 173. So let me put up the graphic right here so you guys can understand how I just murdered that. I have all these numbers written down here, and I couldn't even read my own thing. So it's Kenny Long, highest of all time, Jeff Goldenbaum, second, Kenny Long again, Bob Crane, and then a tie, Jeff Szymanski and Brian Sheehan. But Jeff, what you did secure was the largest margin of victory at 107 points. Congratulations to you. Boy, that really sucks for you, huh, Mike? You know, the thing is, you know, we weren't projected to, these projections in ESPN, none of these blowouts were projected for this week. None of these close games were projected for this week. The ESPN projections absolutely stink. If you look at it, some of the projections that were scheduled for this past week were Frank Gore was projected to have 6 points. In reality, he got 39. Steve Smith was projected for 10. In reality, 42. Eddie Royal, 8. In reality, 35. The ESPN projections are not for Turnpike to Turnpike. They're for standard leagues with standard scoring. Our league, as you all know, and if you don't know it by now, our league is predicated on the big play bonuses. Yardage leagues. We give big bonuses for when you total 100 yards receiving, 100 yards rushing, 300 yards passing, or you get major bonuses when you hit on a deep score, like a 55-yard touchdown pass to your halfback when you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking of that, let's get to my game from last week when I took on John Moore's Downingtown Gravediggers against my Warriors of Babylon. I lost this one 139-97, and the aforementioned Frank Gore 39 points, Matt Stafford 34 points, and Terrence Williams 19 points, all going to John Moore, while I received 27 points out of Jordy Nelson, 18 points out of Jay Cutler, and 15 points out of my tight end, Travis Kelce. So, John, congratulations. Yet again, another win against me. You are on a major roll. 3-4 years in a row now you have beaten me. Good for you. Up next, we have Michael Sam's Gerbils, Brian Sheehan's team, taking on Jeffrey Hezekiah Golden Bombs, Hamilton Square Possum. And Jeff remains undefeated, winning this one 120-66. Jeff received 31 points from DeMarco Murray. Well, you got to be thrilled to have DeMarco Murray. I'm sure when you drafted Adrian Peterson in the first round, you felt confident you were going to have the league-leading rusher. Little did you know that you would have him, but he would have been the guy that you selected in the third round in DeMarco Murray. You also received 22 points out of Matt Ryan and 22 points out of the Miami Dolphins defense. Rashish, you finally got some decent production out of Jamal Charles with 28 points, 14 points out of Alfred Morris, and 7 points out of Tom Brady. What is up with Tom Brady, folks? He looks awful. I knew he wasn't going to be the usual Tom Brady this year. That the gold is faded off that apple. I think I just made up a new saying. But he hasn't looked Tom Brady-like in a couple years. I think everybody else did the smart thing of avoiding him, and he just dropped into Sheesh's lap. It's bad, looking bad for you there, Sheesh, with your quarterback. And in our last match from last week, we have one of my favorite things that happens every year, and that is a long bowl. We have 3 a year. The first one happened this past week with Deputy Commissioner Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods taking on his son Kenny and his Godfathers. And Papa beats Junior in this one, 82-62. Chris got 26 points out of Drew Brees, 12 points out of Mike Evans, and 12 points out of his Lions defense, where Kenny got 15 points out of Nick Novak, his kicker, never a good sign, Kenny, 13 points out of his quarterback, Cam Newton, and 10 points out of his Bills defense. So with that, I promised you last week, meet the manager. Let's see what it's like to be in the Long household come a Long Bowl, or any given Sunday in fantasy football with Turnpike to Turnpike with 3 members of the Long contingent. And let's go to the Long household and talk to Deputy Commissioner Chris Long. I spoke to him a little while ago. Here's how it went. So joining me now on this week's Meet the Manager is Deputy Commissioner Chris Long. Chris, are you there?
Absolutely. How you doing this week, Kev?
I'm not as good as you. I mean, congratulations on that hard-fought battle you had with Kenny.
There was a lot of talk, chirping going back and forth, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure. And how is Greg handling the 1-3 start?
Not so excited, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But hold on, I want to back up. I want to go off topic real quick.
Oh, God.
Not quite off topic.
Okay.
I want you to explain how insufferable you were at work on Monday when you came in after your team beat the Eagles.
I was actually all right. You know, it was a tough Niners, look, they don't look right. There's a lot of talk about Harbaugh and everything, so I was worried about the game. I really thought they had a chance to lose, and when the Eagles went up 21 points, 21-7, I wasn't saying anything. And then I get a text from Mike Bond, and it's Mike Bond and Saminsky together, and they're talking about Saminsky's talking about how he's shitting all over Bond's team, and Bond says, "Well, I'm fine with that as long as the Birds keep shitting on San Francisco." And that's when it took off. So,
and you don't go into the office and pound your chest a little bit on Monday. I find that hard.
You know what? I really didn't, because I'm not comfortable with this team yet. If I think that this team could go on, I'd probably be a little bit more bragging. I'm still very worried about them. I think they'll be better once Alden and everybody is back, but right now I'm worried about them. So I'm walking temperedly. But,
okay, that's fair. I just figured you would take your chance. I figured with Lee Saminsky, you'd be punching him a little bit in the head and then beating up on the Eagles. So.
Saminsky's a big boy. I'm not going to punch him in the head at all.
That's fair.
So, but back to Sundays at the Longhouse, especially when you guys are playing each other head to head. How entertaining is that?
It's fun. I mean, it's. This Sunday we were a little distracted. We had sort of a family outing. Well, not family outing. It was homemade wine making day, so we didn't really sit down like we usually do. But I'll be honest, on most Sundays we're all sitting there. Some of us are downstairs watching games. Some of us are upstairs watching games. I'm a big fan of actually watching games, and my kids are big fans of watching nothing but Red Zone.
Yeah, I'm a Red Zone guy.
So we get in some battles in that respect, especially when the Eagles are on.
Right.
But it's great when you're like sitting upstairs and you hear like down in the basement because you know that like one of my guys scored against him or vice versa. It's very entertaining, to be honest.
Yeah. So listen, I think that aside from talking about your game or your family or whatever, I think we need to talk about a couple topics at Turnpike to Turnpike that I think really need to be addressed. Number one, Golden Bomb's undefeated.
And I love Jeff. But this is getting over. You might have to ban him from the league if he continues to win on this level.
It's unbelievable how we allowed him to not only get away with drafting Adrian Peterson, he still has the league-leading rusher DeMarco Murray and Giovanni Bernard. I mean, his team is ridiculous. But the bigger problem, is the little guy.
Yes, trust me. How many emails did you get this week?
Oh my God, it doesn't stop. He is his biggest fan. There is no bigger fan of Bob than Bob.
Well, we all knew that already. So.
The emails come, the 10 things I think, praising himself on picking players like this tight end that fell into his lap from the Giants. What's his name? Donnell?
Oh, yeah. I think that was Sherlock, yes.
Oh, sure. And then Steve, he gets absolutely blitzed out of his mind. Calvin Johnson does nothing for him this week. And, of course, he's got Steve Smith, another player that fell into his lap.
Yeah, at some point they didn't all fall into his lap, Kev. You got to give him some credit.
No.
I understand you refuse to. I, as deputy commissioner, give Bob a little bit of credit.
Little being the key word? I mean,
I chose my phrase as well.
Could you imagine if he winds up winning this thing, how difficult that would be for an entire year? On top of it, I'm going to have to pay for his league dues next year.
Yeah, it'll be pretty unsufferable. Well, no, I read today Rudolph might be coming back sooner than they thought. So there's still a chance.
Well, God, I'm so sick over that bet. I should have listened to you. It was just...
Didn't you guys put in like a clause that if someone gets hurt, it was out? I think I remember that.
No, I wanted to, and everybody vetoed that. That was my thing. I had a premonition.
We are pretty much tricked like that. Yes, I'm sure we did veto if that came up.
Oh God! And then Sheehan and I have the other bet where I'll have more total points than he'll have at the end of the year, and that's not looking good either.
Kev, I got to be honest. You're not looking good, dude.
I know. All right, let's get back to this. I went totally different this year. I've for the past 6 years, I've gone running back. I've been burnt. I've been screwed over by that. I figured I'd take sure things, which I love having Dez and Jordy. I love it, but I have nothing else.
Right. Well, you know what? And it's funny because I was looking at your team earlier and I was trying to figure out. Cause frankly, I've been doing whatever I've been doing with smoke and mirrors because I've scored almost no points this year. I'm just getting good matchups.
Right.
But I fully believe that's going to come around and bite me in the ass at some point. So I'm not buying my 3-1 by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean,
But I was trying to figure out. I mean, and you and I think we took sort of different paths, but we sort of ended up at the same place.
Yeah.
You know, we went with the best player available thing, though. I went quarterback much earlier than you.
Yep.
But frankly, looking at our quarterbacks, they're not that far apart from each other in terms of points. But I'm in the same boat, Kevin. I mean, I got Demaryius Thomas done nothing this year.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's amazing to me because I loved him. If he was there, I would have took him over Dez. I took Dez because you took Demaryius. I'm shocked at the lack of effort. But you know, want to talk about a shocking fall though? How about Tom Brady?
Yes. Well, that's no.
I mean, he looked bad last night.
Yeah, he looked bad, and you know what? That's why all these guys keep telling you that he was not, that's why people are like, we're getting Tom Brady in the 8th round. That's awesome. Well, it's not so awesome. Really.
No, it's not.
It's gonna bite you in the ass.
No.
And I got to be honest, I'm still not a Kaepernick fan. I know he's been scoring relatively well for you because I did look it up earlier before I started spouting off. But I think for fantasy, these run quarterback option quarterback guys are not the guys. I still think you got to get a passer.
Yeah. Well, the other guy I got is a passer. He's a knucklehead in Cutler, but you know that he's kind of the guy I've been leaning on. If you look, I've only really started Kaepernick once so far. I kind of got pigeonholed into the two of them. I wanted Kaepernick. I wanted Cutler. I had to take them where they were. If I had it all to do over again, I probably would have took somebody different, but I don't know who.
Yeah, well, like I said, and I went real high with Breeze, obviously, and it hasn't really panned out. I mean, he's been good. He hasn't been spectacular.
Right.
He hasn't, he needs to outscore the quarterbacks by 15 points for him to be valuable where I picked him.
Right.
So frankly, look, I'm not impressed with my team at all. Like I said, if you look at, I think almost every week I'd either beat one or two guys in the league, and I have to be playing one or two of those guys this week. So it's not been pretty.
Yeah, I unfortunately am on the other end of that. I've been playing. Look, I played John Moore this past week. He was projected to get like
John
80.
Moore took it to you, dude. I got to be honest.
Yeah, with my guy, with Frank Gore.
Hey, you deserve that. You have plenty of opportunities against Frank Gore and didn't take him. So, with your other boy who was going to be the upstart, and who's been good, but not Frank Gore.
I did send John a text immediately after that 55-yard touchdown saying, as much as that just killed me, it was nice to see. So I was gentlemanly on that. But you know what's really interesting? My birthday is this coming Friday, which is the 3rd, and I got a text from John yesterday wishing me a happy belated birthday.
Well, hey, look, I'm sure he's one of the few people who can actually wish you a birthday on any level, so I think you should just accept it.
That's fair enough, man. That's a good point. All right, man. So listen, any projections on the rest of the season for you? You said you're not feeling so good. You don't think you're going to make the playoffs, or you think you can?
No, I'm not feeling good at all. You and I both went into this saying we're going to be struggling for running backs all year long, and I'm already struggling for running backs. My number one receivers aren't doing anything. Frankly, Gronk has stepped up. Okay, not great, but better than average. So I'm actually happy with him. I'm already bouncing around on kickers. I dumped my kicker last week. I went out and probably led the league in kicking last week. Yep. And I'm probably going to try to pick him back up, and I'm sure I'm not going to get him this week. So I've made basically no good moves at this point, even though I continue to shuffle my roster, and I'm struggling mightily for a running back thing I'm going to be happy with. So I just don't see how this all equates to, unless Drew Brees and Demaryius Thomas suddenly, literally catch on fire.
Right. Which could happen.
How I continue to win. Let's put it that way.
That could happen, though. I mean, Demaryius Thomas he could bounce back into form, absolutely no problem. And Drew Brees is Drew Brees. I mean, the thing about that team is they have to be playing at home. If they're not playing at home, they're a whole different team.
It's I never really bought into that concept, and I know it was a valid concept, but this year it's become dramatically more apparent that if they're not home, they're useless.
Yep.
I don't know what that is. I think they're really missing Mark Ingram, honestly, because there's no threat of a running game at this point. And it's really killing everything else on the team, to be honest. So
I agree. All right, man. So do you feel at least confident in saying that you have the best long team?
I do. I'll buy into that one. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because honestly, my older son who I beat this past week keeps dressing his quarterbacks. Frankly, like I said, he's half running, half. He's like, I got Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. I'm like, so you have no quarterback.
And he's got Cam Newton in the wrong year.
Correctly, as far, their run is 50% as much as pass.
And then your younger son is chasing last year with Manning.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's what Greg. He's and that's what it's going to come down to.
Yep.
I'm not outside of that. I know he doesn't like to hear this. I'm not overly excited.
Nope.
Peyton Manning's a great pick, but it's sort of when you can't screw up. If you get a chance to take him, you take him. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to put some other things around him. But my kids are enamored by names a little too much that, frankly, aren't the names that they should be anymore.
I'll let you in on a little secret. On draft day, Greg was drafting right after me. I was at 9, he was at 10, and I know his infatuation with Peyton. I actually toyed around taking him just in front of him just to see his face.
I would have loved to have seen that because he would have had no clue what to do at that point. That was the only guy he was going for.
All right, man. Listen, have a good week.
Thanks, Kev. Good talking to you. Have a good season. Good luck.
Take care, man.
See you. Bye-bye.
That's Deputy Commissioner Chris Long joining me this week on Meet the Manager. Thanks, Chris. That's ever insightful. Good insight onto the mind of Bob Crane, amongst other hot topics in Turnpike to Turnpike. Good luck the rest of the way. Let's get to this coming week's matchups. My Warriors of Babylon take on the undefeated Hamilton Square Possum, Jeffrey Hazakawi Golden Bombs team. Kenny's Godfathers takes on John Moore's Downingtown Gravediggers. That matchup is a matchup of a 2-2 team and a 1-3 team. Bob's 3-0-1. Now I'm correcting the score from what I said earlier. Bob is 3-0-1, not 2-1-1, 1-3-1. 3-0-1. Julius Jones taking on the 2-2 Michael Sam's Gerbils. This is always a good match to watch. A lot of good smack talk on the message board, usually under other threads because Bob doesn't know how to start a new one. Keep your eye on that one, although Bob's team is on an incredible roll and Brian's is not. Matt Dreyfus' Fishtown off in a corner, 3-1, taking on Deputy Commissioner Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods at 3-1. This is going to be a big match for both of you guys. East Falls Blunts, Mike Bond's team, is taking on Greg Long's Mount Laurel Lancers. An 0-4 team taking on a 1-3 team. This is a stink bowl. We'll see if Bond can kind of get back into the winning column or if Greg bounces back and really just basically buries Bond's season. Remember, Mike, Jeffrey Hazakawi Golden Bomb started off 0-4. You could be right where you want to be. And in the last match from next week, we've got Jeff Saminsky's Paper Tiger at 2-1-1 taking on Aaron Stampa's Team Snoozy Loaf. Second week in a row, Jeff is taking on a fellow Fanatics team member. This one should be interesting. I see that Aaron's starting to make some moves on the roster. He was asking me a couple questions. Always glad to help. Until then, guys, I'm League Commissioner Kevin Babula. I'm trying to tread water. I'm trying to stay alive this season. This is a big week for me, taking on that bald beauty. Not that bald beauty, Jeff Goldenbaum. Until then, I'm League Commissioner Kevin Babula. Bye.